Let's break down some multiple choice questions. I'll pick a course, then we'll break down 4 possible examples of questions you may see in the exams. This is going to be super helpful, not just to get through and see answered questions, but also let's learn from them. If you are looking for that additional support to pass these exams fast and efficient, look to the Exam Master mini courses in the description below from C1 all the way to Sims 2. More on that later in the video, but let's just dive right into the computer. Okay guys, here we are at question 1. If you've seen me do this before, we'll just read them and break them down. I have some notes. We'll talk about why these questions are correct, maybe more importantly, why the answers are incorrect. Sometimes that really helps make things stick. Let's break it down. 4 really good questions for course 4. Top left, 1, deep breath. In real estate market analysis, which of the following best describes the concept of absorption rate and what influences it? Okay, I wanted to add this question because multiple people have had this topic. It's a very specific topic, but it does relate to a lot of stuff, and even in the real world as well. So basically, we'll just go through them all, break them down, and try to find the correct answer. A, absorption rate refers to the total number of properties listed in a market and is only influenced by seasonal trends. This actually describes inventory levels, right? Not the rate at which properties are being sold, which is more so what we're looking for. Again, bring up a note and I'll really make this absorption rate stick just in case you get a couple questions on it. Move on to B. Absorption rate refers to the speed at which available properties are sold in a market over a given period and is influenced by supply and demand conditions. Okay, so I love this one. Let's leave it hovered over. Still read them all though. Always do every single possible answers. Process of elimination. Leave it hovered over, but move on. C, absorption rate is the percentage increase in property values over time and is influenced by mainly by interest rates. This describes price appreciation, essentially, not absorption rate. D, absorption rate refers to the number of buyers currently looking for properties and is influenced only by population growth. If you ever see these words too, I talk about this often. This is definitely a red flag word, right? We have a few of them in the Exam Master mini course, which I mentioned. If you see these red flag words only, right? Exactly, must. There's a bunch of these key words that we go over. Basically, absorption rate measures sales relative to available inventory. Not just buyer interest, which is what this one is referring to. So let's bring up the note here, just so you can make it stick. Again, screenshot any of these notes if needed, right? Definition, absorption rate, how quickly listings are being sold. Simple idea. High absorption, home selling quickly, seller's market. Low absorption, home selling slowly, buyer's market. Influence factors, supply, number of listings, demand, number of buyers, interest rate, economic conditions, seasonality, right? Basic formula, if you're tested, sales divided by total listings equals the absorption rate. This you probably won't need to know, just basically what it is. Think for the exam. Absorption rate is equal to market speed. Again, screenshot that, go back to it if needed. But answer is B, and move on to 2. Top left, deep breath. An agreement of purchase and sale has been accepted, okay? And a few days before closing, the buyer indicates they no longer want to proceed with the transaction. Okay, crazy stuff. What is the most appropriate action for the seller's salesperson in this situation? Okay, so we're looking for the seller's salesperson, the appropriate action. Okay, the seller's salesperson should step back and avoid communication with the seller while the lawyers handle the termination discussions. Okay. Not that bad of an answer, to tell you the truth. Like, realistically, they should just step back. But the avoid communication with the seller, right? Avoiding communication, right? You have to continue communicate, right? Support their client, right? Stepping away is okay because we'll get to the answer. But it would fail to meet their duty of service to completely step away and avoid. That's just a big word there, big polarizing word. Look for that. But keep it hovered over. If you don't know, again, right, keep these things hovered over. We'll talk about that in a second too. But I'd move on to B. The seller's salesperson should contact the buyer's lawyer directly to find out why the buyer wants to terminate the agreement. The seller's salesperson, like put yourself in the situation. You're the seller. You're not contacting, right? You do not bypass the other parties to their representation, right? You don't do that. You don't reach out to their lawyers, that's for sure. You just work with your clients. On to C, the seller salesperson should continue to advise and communicate with their seller client while allowing the lawyers to handle the legal aspects. I really like this one. Let's leave it hovered over. D, the seller salesperson should attempt to renegotiate the agreement directly with the buyer to keep the deal together while the lawyers review the termination. I do like how they throw this at the end here to possibly confuse you, but we know that they're not going to directly. You just talk to your clients while the buyer's representation talks to their clients, right? In this
particular case. Let's quickly bring up a small note here because these questions can come up. Note, when lawyers become involved, once an APS, agreement of purchase and sale, legally in dispute or being terminated, lawyers will typically handle the legal interpretation and termination process. The salesperson should continue to advise and communicate with their client, avoid giving legal advice, avoid interfering with the lawyer's work, avoid contact the other party's lawyer to investigate the issue, right? Think of it as support your client, but let the lawyers handle the legal problem in this case of wanting to terminate this deal. Okay, C, answer and move on. 3, top left, deep breath. There are several conditions involved when aligning the requirements of a buyer to a retail property that will effectively meet their needs. Okay, all of the below are considerations to take into account, except which one? Okay, except question. Okay, so this is an interesting one. This is essentially a not question. Okay, so we're seeing these now, of course, for a while now, except which one? That is essentially a not question. All of the below are considerations to take into account, right, related to buyer and retail property, except which one? Okay, traffic count onto A. Yes, of course, this is going to, or is it a consideration? This is used to basically assess volumes or vehicles, basically pedestrian traffic, anything like that, along a particular roadway or intersection or something like that. Demographics, of course, information regarding population, income levels, right? This is huge for the surrounding area, as well as information regarding shopping behavior, stuff like that, characteristics, anything like that. You need the demographics for sure. C, surrounding uses, sure, because basically determines what sort of retail facilities, like there could be complementary business around, right, of a retail place. And then vacant land, right, except which one? Vacant land would more so be directed towards, let's say, farming or right, industrial farming, or even just farming, or any sort of like other type of industrial property. That would be more so the vacant land if you wanted to expand or something like that, right? Not so much retail. It would be these ones. And don't let these confuse you. It's basically not question. All of the below considerations taken into account for a buyer looking for a retail property, except which one? Vacant land. D, answer and move on. Last question here. Top left, deep breath. 4, when a lender evaluates a mortgage application for a commercial income producing property, what is the primary factor used to determine the loan amount? This is interesting because you get people always asking me, because we're not mortgage agents, but there is a lot of information, especially back in course 2 and stuff like that. Then you're going to see a couple. It's like, how much do I need to know of this mortgage information? This is more just a question related to a mortgage. You're not a mortgage agent or anything, but this is kind of related, and this could come up for sure. Okay, let's read them and break them down. A, the current and projected income generated by the property along with lease quality and operating performance. Okay, what is the primary factor? Okay, this is interesting. Let's leave it here for a second. B, the borrower's personal income and employment history are the main factors used to determine the loan amount. Okay, let's say we don't know. Let's just keep reading. The lender only considers the appraised market value of the property because commercial properties are always purchased as investments. Look at this. Only and always, two big factors, or two big keywords, red flag keywords. When you see those, I would move on from there. D, the lender applies the same underwriting criteria used for residential mortgages, but requires a slightly larger down payment. Okay. This is something people get confused about because it's commercial versus residential, right? Commercial underwriting is significantly more complex than residential, includes analysis of income, leases, market conditions, which is basically let's bring up a note here. And if you just don't, before B, basically the borrower's personal income, while the borrower's income, like their financial strength may be reviewed as for sure, commercial lending primarily focuses on income basically generating by the property. And let's bring this up. And basically, that's basically what I'm going to say in this note, I think. And again, screenshot of this needed. Commercial versus residential. Okay, so I like that I kind of brought this in too because it's a factor. Residential mortgages based mainly on borrowers' qualifications, income, credit score, employment, debt ratios. Commercial mortgages based mainly on property income and business performance, lease agreements, net operating income, tenant stability, local market conditions, land use and growth potential, environmental risk. Commercial lending typically involves more documentation, longer approval timelines, and more complex underwriting. Okay, guys, that is A is the answer to this. Don't get confused there. 4 really good questions. We'll see you right at the computer.
I really hope that helped, guys. And as mentioned, if you are looking for the additional support, look to the Exam Master mini courses in the description below. It's mini notes, mini quizzes, my exact fundamentals I used to pass all exams first try and in 4.5 months. And I also do video breakdowns of the 4 types of questions you may see in exams. Those links in the description below are also value links for the time being for the YouTube family. I'll add that link to the exammaster.ca right here as well if needed. If you have any questions at all, DM, email, comment on this video. I get back to everyone. My name is Callum Moore, eXp Realty real estate broker here in Ontario. Thanks so much for watching, and we'll see you in the next one.